Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a distant land, there was a sweet and lovely little girl who lived with her mother in a white cottage near the woods. She always wore a beautiful red cape that her mother had sewn for her, and for this reason everyone throughout the land called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother asked Little Red Riding Hood to visit her grandmother, who was ill and lived alone beyond the woods. The mother prepared a basket of crumpets and a bottle of fresh milk, and warned the little girl not to stop to talk to anyone along the path in the woods. Little Red Riding Hood loved her grandmother very much and was happy to visit her. She set out on a journey with a basket in her hand, singing and skipping cheerfully into the woods. La la la. By and by, the woods became thicker, and the sunlight could barely shine through between the branches of the trees. Suddenly, Little Red Riding Hood saw a pair of large, glinting eyes that stared at her from behind a shrub. The eyes belonged to a clever black wolf, who, curious, had been following Little Red Riding Hood for a while. The wolf greeted the girl with a gruff voice and asked, "Little girl, where are you going all alone in the woods?" At the moment, Little Red Riding Hood forgot her mother's warning and politely replied, "I'm going to visit my grandmother, who lives alone beyond the woods and is sick in bed." The wolf thought the little girl would make a tasty treat, and he also thought he could eat the grandmother too. So the clever wolf proposed a race to the cottage to make the journey more fun. Let's see which one of us arrives at grandmother's house first. The wolf, who knew the woods well, began to run at full speed on the shortest path, while Little Red Riding Hood walked cheerfully along, stopping to collect flowers. When the bad wolf arrived at the grandmother's cottage, he knocked gently at the door, imitating Red Riding Hood's voice. When the grandmother opened the door, the wolf leapt inside and ate the grandmother in one bite. Then he dressed in her nightgown, bonnet and spectacles, and taking a book, he got into bed to wait for Red Riding Hood. When Red Riding Hood arrived, she wondered why the door was already open. When she ran to embrace her grandmother, she exclaimed with amazement, "Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have!" The wolf, disguised as the grandmother, replied, "All the better to hear you." The little girl drew nearer and said, "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have!" The wolf replied, "Oh, the better to see you." Finally, the little girl said, "Oh, grandmother, what a large mouth you have! the wolf exclaimed. "All the better to eat ya." And leaping from the bed, he swallowed up poor little Red Riding Hood. The wolf finally returned to bed and began snoring loudly. Unexpectedly, a hunter, a friend of the grandmother, was passing by and heard the scuffle. He became suspicious and thought, "Such noise! I must make sure my friend is safe and sound." He then entered the bedroom and saw the wolf fast asleep. He pointed his rifle at the wolf, but he knew that if the terrible beast had eaten the grandmother, there was still hope to save her. He opened the wolf's belly and with great astonishment saw the grandmother with her granddaughter leap out. Little Red Riding Hood and grandmother, free from danger, hugged the other and celebrated, eating the crumpets and milk from the baskets. Little Red Riding Hood had learned her lesson. She would never disobey her mother again.